What's up guys, I'm Sean and welcome back to the channel. So one common complaint that I always hear about in Singapore is that cars are just so expensive. But did you know that cars are actually a lot more affordable in other countries compared to Singapore? In fact, they can cost practically a fraction of what they do over here. So in this video, I will explain to you why cars actually cost so much more over here than they do in other countries. So before we begin, I just want to say that I am aware that another local YouTube channel actually did this exact same topic just a few months ago, but I literally just found out about it just after I finished writing this script and posted it in our blog, link in the description down below. But since we live in an age of choice, I'm going to continue it. So let's just start by taking a look at one of the most popular cars in Singapore and comparing them to the price overseas. Now in our case, we'll take a look at the simple Toyota Corolla Altis. Now these prices may not be 100% accurate as they vary depending on where you go, but they are a good ballpark figure to compare. So for example, the Toyota Altis in 2021 cost roughly about $119,000 in Singapore. Compare that with the $19,000 US that you would expect to find in the US. So why is there such a huge difference in the price between here and overseas? Now this is mainly down to two main components that are added into the cost of passenger cars in Singapore, mainly being taxes and our legendary Certificate of Entitlement or COE. So as the saying goes, the only certainties in life are death and taxes, and cars in Singapore are no exception to this rule, except that the taxes on cars in Singapore are significantly higher than what you would find in other countries. So to break it down, we have the following things to consider when calculating the final cost of a car in Singapore. First up is the OMV or open market value, which is the basic cost of purchasing, shipping and insuring the car all the way into Singapore. This amount is usually determined by our local customs, and if you have been looking around yourself, you would have realized that this OMV or open market value is roughly equivalent to the final price that most people would expect to pay for a car overseas. However, this OMV is just the beginning for us. Next up, we have excise duty, which is basically a 20% tax on the OMV, followed by 7% GST or goods and services tax. Of course, these are not very welcome taxes for us who are buying the car, but they really pale in comparison to what I have coming up next. Now before we go on, let's just add on a simple registration fee, which is a flat rate of $220 for all cars. After that, however, we have something called the additional registration fee or ARF, which is calculated on a sliding scale based on the OMV of the car. So this is charged at 100% for the first $20,000, 140% for the subsequent $30,000, and 180% for the remainder after $50,000. But we are not done yet because we still have a couple more things to add, including our COE. So what is COE? Well, COE is a Certificate of Entitlement, which is basically the cost of bidding for the entitlement to own a car in Singapore. Now for those who aren't aware, the Singapore government only allows a fixed number of cars to be put onto the road every quarter. At the time of filming this video, the current COE is $47,000 for cars below 1600cc or 130 horsepower. And for cars above 1600cc or 130 horsepower, the current COE is approximately $70,000. So now, before you start to think that it's all about taxes, our government actually does offer certain rebates for cars that are more environmentally friendly. In other words, they produce lower emissions. However, on the flip side, there are also surcharges on cars that produce high emissions. This amount ranges from a rebate of up to $25,000 or a surcharge of as much as $20,000. However, more often than not, do not expect to get more than a $10,000 rebate unless you are really going for a Econo box or some really low emissions car. And with all this, we finally arrive at the basic cost of a car in Singapore, before including the dealer's markup on them. So as you can see, the prices of cars in Singapore are actually pretty transparent, and you can quite easily work out an approximate gross profit that the dealer is making. Across the board, this tends to be anywhere in the range of 10 to 30% depending on the brand and whatever in-house options and add-ons are negotiated upon. Now, it can be tempting to assume that your dealer is making pretty generous margins for themselves. However, do not forget that they do actually have quite a sizable overhead which they need to cover. Apart from the standard brick and mortar expenses of their showroom and their staff wages, they also need to cover sales commissions, workshop overheads, warranty expenses, stock holding costs, warehousing costs, marketing costs, administration costs, and the list goes on. Also, keep in mind that most of the time, the prices being put out by the dealers are actually a gamble based on what they predict the COE price will go towards. So in the case that the COE does shoot up way beyond what they expected, they may even have to take a loss in order to guarantee a sales agreement in the case of a guaranteed COE package. This is why a lot of dealers actually offer a non-guaranteed COE package at a slightly lower cost. So now that I've explained to you how cars end up costing so much over here in Singapore, let me just leave you with one final thought. The prices that we pay for cars over here definitely lull us into viewing these cars as a luxury item, which is totally understandable. However, it is actually car ownership that is more of a luxury item than most cars themselves. Cars for most people are just merely tools for transportation, for going to work, and for doing their business. So the next time you are feeling somewhat disappointed that your $80,000, $100,000 or even $200,000 car isn't as perfect as what you would expect for how much you paid for it, perhaps just go back and take a look at the OMV of the car to remind yourself how much this car actually costs in the open market, and maybe you'll feel a bit better. Or maybe not. And so that wraps things up today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a like and subscribe below, and I'll see you next time.